Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Julian Grace, and today's deep dive conversation goes very deep. It's part one of a special two-part series on the topic of racial profiling by the police. I'm used to telling other people's stories, but this series will focus on my experiences and will feature conversations between my father and me, and between me and my kids, about experiences with racial profiling, which, despite the progress that has been made, is still very much a part of our lives.
Oh man, here they go again.
For children, the art of lecturing starts early and often.
Eat your vegetables.
Comb your hair.
Do your homework.
Did you say grace?
But the conversation given before an audience of African American children in Black households is different. You've likely heard of it, the talk. The conversation is almost like a rite of passage for Black children, especially to sons.
Take your hoodie off.
The talk is small in phrase, but it's a roadmap on how to navigate encounters with the police.
No matter what, be polite and respectful when stopped by an officer.
Parents have given this lecture on multiple occasions well before viral videos seeped out showing a defenseless person of color dying at the hands of an officer.
Watch your mouth and check your emotions.
There were pointers and pleas.
Please, please, please don't resist.
And shortly after turning 12, I received the clip notes on how to respond to an officer.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Now, as a father of 4, I find myself preparing the same tutorial for my 3 sons and daughter, who range in ages from 14 to 5.
What do you think about the police?
I think they're here to help. But sometimes when stuff go wrong, sometimes I feel like they might go a little bit overboard when it comes to Black people.
Silently, I don't want to underestimate the burden this conversation will place on their innocence. You can hear why this is not an idle concern. I'm confident that not sharing a playbook on what to do during a routine traffic stop will not serve them well. Still to this day, I am cautiously suspicious. I have an aversion to seeing cherries and berries in my rear view. Remember, as a teen, that's what we called police lights. I just got my license. I'm 16. I'm behind the wheel all alone for the first time, and I'm so excited. Yet thoughtfully aware that violating one of my parents' rules, like going too fast, would leave me without a car. So I'm cautious. Seatbelt on, mirrors adjusted, and I'm deliberately a couple of miles under the posted speed limit. Lights green, I go. I make the turn at the intersection just a few blocks from home. In a flash, I hear sirens blaring. I glance at my rear view and I see red and blue lights with a squad car just inches from my bumper. I'm prepared for this, or so I think. But instantly I recalled my driver's ed manual instructions.
Page 10, Section 1. When an emergency vehicle is approaching, pull to the edge of the roadway. Remain there until the vehicle passes.
I did it. Yet the squad car doesn't pass. It's parked right behind me. Officer jumps out. He looks intense. His hair is in perpetual motion as he plunges in and out of traffic. He's of medium build and physically unremarkable. Then I realized the sidewalk is not his desired destination. Instead, he was coming straight at me.
What'd you stuff under your seat?
Stuff under the seat? I asked, puzzled. In my head, I think I didn't stuff anything under my seat. But if I did, what's the problem?
I'm going to have to search your car.
The officer is abrupt and appears rushed. Yes, I agree to the search, but I didn't stuff anything under my seat. Then in a matter of seconds, 6 squad cars surround my vehicle. Another officer quickly escorts me away from my 4-door Chevy. I'm surrounded by men and women in blue, and I'm thinking to myself, what did I do? I'm adamant. I stuffed nothing under my seat. But even if I did, I'm confused why these officers are treating me as a criminal, as opposed to an honest teenager who just made a simple mistake, like a wrong turn, an improper lane violation, or as the stopping officer said, stuffing something under my seat, which I didn't do. An officer with a canine arrives. The black and tan German shepherd trotted out of the squad car with a large tongue draped across his teeth. His cone-shaped ears were sturdily pointed north, just past the handler's waist. This is a massive dog. I love dogs, but not this one, and I'm very wary. Let me explain why. It's the type of shepherd I've seen in black and white photos in history books that detailed the conflict in the civil rights movement. Photographer Bill Hudson took the snapshot that is ingrained in my memory bank. The photo shows a police officer-led German shepherd with his ears pinned back and jagged teeth lodged into the flesh of a young black teenager. Seeing this dog is a little triggering. However, this canine hurries right past me and is led straight to my car. By this time, gawkers are out standing on porches and lawns looking at the teenage boy surrounded by blue. Their gaze at me appears as if they believe I totally deserve to be barricaded by dozens of officers. The canine is in my car, moving with precision, sniffing from floorboard to floorboard, back seat to front seat. Suddenly, the dog stops sniffing, and the handler jerks him away. The officer who pulled me over is now engaged in another conversation with another officer. At this time, there are so many resources surrounding my stop that I'm convinced this officer has a vested interest in taking me to jail. What I lacked in that moment was an advocate, someone to vouch for me, that I'm a good kid who loves a good book, who attends church on Sundays, and who enjoys spending summers with his grandparents. However, it's all moot at this point. My heartbeat rapidly increases. Squad cars, officers, and a canine have now blocked my view of my four-door sedan. At this moment, I had no capacity to understand why allegedly stuffing something under my seat would turn into what I would now call a full-scale deployment operation of police resources. I'm scared, and there's no clear way to retreat from this corner. A huddle session between investigators starts. It quickly ends. Now the officer who conducted the initial stop is zigzagging through parked cars and crowded sidewalks to reach me. The moment my dad warned me about is here. And in that second, I'm confident this is my unavoidable destiny. More after the break. So why share details of my pullover at 16 by a white cop? This is not about playing the race card or discrediting law enforcement. It's because for many people of color, moments like this have become routine. It's almost part of the Black experience. On multiple occasions, I've been stopped and questioned during uncalled for traffic stops. In the end, those pullovers resulted with no clear violations or citations issued. Sometimes we all look too quickly past the jobs of others, including the importance of wearing a badge. This is a gigantic duty that largely consists of men and women who embrace imperfect people. It would be inadequate for me to characterize that most officers abuse their privilege to serve and protect, when there are a number of officers who live by the words that no greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. But just to think, many officers do just that for people who will never know their name.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Julian Grace.
As a journalist, I have an immediate obligation to highlight disparities in government, schools, and business practices. This time is different. Part of my journalistic responsibility requires me to avoid making myself part of the story when reporting. There is, of course, the court documents, witness accounts, and police narratives. If I'm honest with myself, I find the explanations to those storylines at times unsatisfying. I need to know more. I want to go beyond the police press releases. I want to talk to the one led away in cuffs. I want their number, their address. Sure, my journalistic background is part of this calculated pursuit. I just objectively want the truth. However, being unjustly profiled, stopped and searched, and hearing similar stories from others who look just like me completes the other part of my motivation. In the 1990s, the all-American television sitcom Family Matters validated how often young black males are profiled by police in just one episode. The Winslow family, which is a middle-class African-American family living in Chicago, tackles this topic boldly. In Season 5, Episode 15, Carl Winslow, who is the dad and also a police officer, is greeted by his frustrated son Eddie, who has just been pulled over by police. Carl warns Eddie about the dangers of driving recklessly, yet Eddie pleads with his father this was not the case. Eddie explains that he was pulled over and forced to lay down on the ground and harassed by officers for being a black kid driving in a white neighborhood. Carl investigates. He questions the arresting officers and discovers Eddie's telling the truth. Carl goes back and he apologizes to his son Eddie, and he shares he knows this pain because he's been a victim of racial profiling. For me, this is a haunting episode that captures and illustrates the problem, and it was televised just 1 year before I would have my own encounter. Incidents like this, shown in Family Matters, were taking place well before the world witnessed the killing of George Floyd and other African Americans at the hands of police. Even before the protests, it appeared African Americans were playing a game of chess. We were instructed by our elders to strike the right tenor, the right tone, and appropriate hand placement when addressed by an officer in a vehicle. Some Black parents are under the assumption that their child of color will be pulled over by an officer multiple times between the ages of 16 and 21. Now, is this based on driver rookie mistakes or racial profiling? That's where national statistics come in, and they seem to validate discrimination. A study conducted by New York University found that out of nearly 100 million traffic stops across the United States, Black drivers were about 20% more likely to be stopped than white drivers relative to their share of the population. The study also found that once stopped, Black drivers were searched about 1.5 to 2 times more often than white drivers. But I wasn't thinking about those stats as a 16-year-old. We're back at the scene again. The officer is approaching. Everyone is watching and wondering the next course of action, and I'm in just as much suspense as those predicting the likely outcome. A flurry of thoughts flood my brain. What are my rights? Wait, I don't know my rights. What are my parents going to say? Am I about to lose my license? What if he takes me to jail? Who do I call? However, I was moved by one central thought. What if this unknown officer who pulled me over plants something under my seat? I feel defenseless, and I just want a quick conference call with my dad. The officer who initiated the stop reaches me and says, "I'm going to let you go this time. But next time, remember the speed limit is 35. Instantly, I wanted to blurt out, "But sir, I wasn't speeding, and you know that." But more importantly, you said I stuffed something under my seat. You searched my vehicle, you surrounded me with a cloud of officers, and you treated me as if I was a fugitive of the law. At that moment, though, I recalled the stories about my grandfather and instructions from my father. So I let all of the ambition I had to question this officer's disingenuous intentions evaporate. And I said, "Yes, sir." He then handed me my license and registration, and I drove away that day, understanding the importance of the talk. Despite feeling violated, punked, and upset, I got to go home that day. A couple of weeks ago, I called the one who introduced me to the talk, my dad.
Hello?
Hey, man.
Hey, choo-choo, man.
So my father, just to give you a brief description, he's just a good dude. He's always been the one to give people the benefit of the doubt. And he made me realize that everyone is entitled to a bad day, even an officer.
You find some kind-hearted policemen. Fair, I'll put it that way.
But when I was 12, my father had no interest in talking to me about the fair ones. He was concerned about the bad ones. Those were the ones that carried guns and badges and wouldn't hesitate to treat me unjustly.
I didn't want to see you get into any problems or get hurt or get killed.
In his own way, he delivered the talk. I believe my dad was breaking down digestible pieces of information to keep me emotionally and physically safe when stopped by an officer. At the time, I couldn't comprehend the reason for the talk, because I still viewed every man and woman in blue as officer-friendly. So did my dad, until one summer day. Next episode, my father's story, and my kids and I have the talk. Thanks so much for listening to this special episode of the WRAL Daily Download, and thanks for making us a part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email that's waiting in your inbox every morning with Triangle news, events, and headlines to get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.